Hello, Warrior family. Barry Schreier, president of Army and Navy Academy. And today I'm very fortunate to be here with Second Lieutenant Jake Meyer. Jake is a recent graduate of West Point, also an Army and Navy Academy graduate, 2020. Jake was here for 5 years. He was the S3 in his senior year and recently graduated out in Fort Sill, Oklahoma, again. And is now starting on his sort of everyday military career.
That's right.
It's been some time. You've been in school for a very, very long time.
Yeah, just started the actual process of like leading as a second lieutenant. So
that's fabulous.
Really excited.
I'm going to let you just jump right in and just review a few of those things that you talked about, because I think it sets a great context for your ability to be resilient and keep going. And I think that was a beautiful lesson for the boys today.
Yeah, no, thank you, Mr. Schreier, for having me. Yeah, so, to start, like 8th grade, I was caught stealing hot chocolate, breaking and entering and stealing hot chocolate.
A hot commodity. It's a big
Yeah, stealing from the mess hall, which, as a young 8th grader, I really wanted my sweet. So I was risking it all. And I got caught actually red-handed by one of the administrators at the time. And, I was brought before like the honor committee. And I remember as like a young 8th grader, 4'11", my knees were buckling like by standing in front of like the battalion commander, who was also the head of the honor committee at the time, Anthony Tucker. And he just like lit me up. And, I walked away with like demoted, and I was pretty disheartened too, because, I was afraid that I wasn't going to be able to, make the kind of success that I wanted out of like the end of my middle school, going into high school career. There's a lot on the line when thinking about like college down the line. It's very scared, but I ended it in, even though I had a pretty significant roadblock, it didn't prevent me from like later getting, the kind of leadership opportunities I wanted, when I got into high school. So
I thought it was fantastic that you mentioned this to the boys. You said, look, I made mistakes in 8th grade. I made mistakes in my senior year.
Yeah.
And
beyond. And beyond.
Yeah. And you did get to say, look, you need to understand that that's a part of it, right? Don't let it define you. Don't let it inhibit your ability to still reach for what you're looking for.
It's good. It's important to mention that. And one thing like I think it's important for the boys to know too is like, I talked a lot about how like if you pigeonhole yourself in such a one definition of success, those mistakes feel more devastating, because it's like, okay, maybe some doors open and some doors close, and maybe some mistakes, like I had some grace from like the commandant, but if I did, for maybe example, get fired from my position on one of my like bigger mistakes, like maybe West Point would have been off the table. And if I had never got, I think now, well, maybe like I have mixed feelings about that decision to go, but if I had decided to stay, if I had decided to, if that were no longer on the table, and I didn't go to West Point, I may have been devastated at that time, because I had so locked in onto that one destination. But having like that flexibility and that, freedom to choose and like accept the kind of outcomes that happen, I think is important. And I think, that's one of my big takeaways from like these experiences there.
It was beautiful because, you say, look, you think at 8th or 9th grade or 10th grade, I'm never going to be able to get the position I'd like. Yeah. And you went through all of that, and you were RS3, which is, those who understand our system, that's what we call the top 4.
Yeah.
So you were able to rise to the top 4 of your class. In addition to that, you didn't get accepted immediately to West Point.
No, I did not.
You took a year, and you went to another university, reapplied, and then got accepted. And just that alone, your ability to say, I will reach this, is extraordinary.
I think there's definitely something to be said, right? Like, you never give up, right? If you have a goal, I mean, I worked my butt off. I worked my butt off to make it there. I didn't get accepted, and I had dreamed about it like literally every day from 8th grade all the way till senior year.
Incredible.
Didn't make it, and I just wasn't going to give up. I remember like my mom remembers when I found out I didn't make it, this was during COVID after we were sent home. And I literally like broke down crying on my bed.
Yeah.
Like, cause I was just so
Devastated.
But what's funny now is I look back at that and I'm like, after finally making it to West Point, and I'm like, you know, who knows? There could have been many other versions of myself that would have been very fulfilled and very successful if it had not even, if it didn't work out, if I did go. Luckily it did. And I think the doors would be great. But I think to go back to this prior point about like making mistakes is like, sometimes mistakes do change those doors, right? And sometimes the outcomes aren't what you think you want, but who knows really if the thing that you received or didn't receive is really the thing that is best for you, right? And that's what I spoke to the boys about today.
Yeah, let's stay on that for a second, because you did say to the boys, you know, in hindsight, I was so fixated on this singular goal. Maybe I would have taken some pressure off myself or been able to see things a little differently if I would just have expanded my universe a little bit.
Horizons, right?
Yeah. And I think that, and it's very interesting for you to say that, because you said it after the fact.
Yeah.
Right. You know, you had gone through all of these things, did everything you said. And then you, on the other side, you said, well, you know, I could have done this differently.
I could have done this differently.
I think it was, I want you to expand upon that, because I think the boys, it's so important that they hear that they're not defined.
Well, yeah, I mean, like those,
Sorry, let's pause for a second. We gotta stop that car. It's too much picking up, and also
This table,
I saw you moving that. Yeah, when you turned your chair.
the chair, the leather rubs up against it. So I thought it was bothering you, so I grabbed it.
Thank you. Yeah. So we might have you ask that question just to make sure that because it's a good question. I really liked where you were going at was a unique perspective that we haven't heard before, which is if you don't get what you want.
you know, it's
Then what happens?
it's where you think you're getting what you want, and then you get to it, and then you realize it's not what you actually want.
Yeah, that is really powerful stuff. I mean, really powerful.
But I got to be careful. I don't want to put down the academy.
No, it's you. This is a personal, and I think you can start by saying, this is me talking. It's nothing about the institution.
And I might say the institution's great, but
Oh, I think you can. And I think that's nothing to do with the institution. It has to do with it's the self-made perception. You created that perception.
right.
We say, when I read your paper, I said, oh, this is you decided what the land of Oz looked like. And when you got there, you went, oh, I had no idea this was behind the pearly gate.
That's
Right.
exactly correct.
And that's
And you should say that during the,
Yeah.
that,
I'll open it with that.
But I also really liked where you were going when you didn't get your acceptance. And then you started down that road of,
Yeah.
what if I hadn't eventually gotten it? What would my life have looked like? And it still could have been
in fact,
tremendous and exciting and fulfilling.
and like where I'm sitting now, like I probably would be happier, if things went differently. But like we just don't know what decisions are ahead of us, right? We don't know what's going to happen. So
Well, I mean, if you can figure that out early on, the rest.
It's pretty cool.
yeah,
Everything from they didn't have what I wanted at the grocery store to make my recipe to, I get the business deal I wanted or.
Right. I expected a white picket fence and 2.3 children. Yeah. It's that 0.3 kid. That's hard.
the third one,
The 0.3.
0.2, 2.3.
Third. It's hard to
Oh,
put a
it's
third.
Oh, the third of it. Yeah, I bet.
We have these here recordings, so some of what you provided is still there. So that's a great smile right there. That's awesome.
My elbow's his.
We could probably clean it up, but they were going to keep going if we didn't stop. Okay, ready? In 3, 2, 1.
Let's talk a little bit about this. What you really went into some detail about today, which I thought was so beneficial for the boys, for them to really hear. Well, first off, you don't always get what you want. I mean, you didn't get what you had expected by an immediate acceptance. You went to another school for a year and you kept going and you pushed yourself right where you needed to be. But there was a truth that you brought up about, saying, look, ever since I had been, you started this in 8th grade here, and I'm sure it was even before then. You said, I want to go to this school, but you didn't really know what it was like. Well, none of us know what we believe that we do. So you you get to West Point. And West Point's a little bit like the land of Oz. You get there and think, oh, these pearly gates are the most spectacular thing. Then you get inside and there's that underbelly.
You see behind the gates, yeah.
You see behind the gates, and it's very, very different. And that's a very personal thing. Your experience there is different than the person to your right and the person to your left. But I think it was very telling that you said it really wasn't the perception that I had built was different from what I was going to see. And that's a lesson to know every single day of your life, because we do that to ourselves. We create these perceptions. And you started to talk today about saying, look, we got to be potentially, what you said is, I learned to be better at that. And that's an enormous takeaway. I think it's great. I'm glad you mentioned it to the boys. And I know I'd love for you to expand on it.
Yeah, I just think that realizing that while West Point is an incredible institution, it's not my experience there for a variety of reasons. It was just not what I was exactly, looking for when I had my idealized version, as I saw as someone who had yet to go there, right? I think what's important for like the boys to understand is two things. Number one, like no matter what happens, you should try your best not to like have too much regret, because there's really no telling what even if what the experience would have been, right? Because it's like you could think you failed or you could think you succeeded, but then you get to where either one of those two ends, and then you realize, well, it's actually not what I wanted anyways. So is that really even success for you, right? And so that's kind of, and the second thing is that no institution, I think you can really understand, or no organization can really understand, or no experience can really understand until you are yourself going through it, right? There's a level of like opaqueness that I think is always going to be present. And so like, don't lead yourself astray in thinking that you know the answer when you really just haven't experienced it yet. So,
yeah, I think it's fantastic. And in this, what you were able to say is, look, I learned something a little bit about myself. I put myself in some respects, I put myself in a box.
That's right.
And be really nice. And I think the boys heard that today. It's like, you don't have to put yourself in a box, right? Or if it's going to be a box, make it a really big one.
No, that's absolutely correct. Yeah, because it's in the pressure that you put yourself in when you only will allow yourself to accept one outcome. It's like probably it's too much than that someone should put, and especially when like these outcomes are not in your control.
Yeah.
If I, like when I didn't get accepted to West Point the first time, like I literally like broke down crying like on my bed, which I'm sure is probably common if people don't get into like their dream school. But I literally was so tunnel vision to West Point that I hadn't thought about a Plan B school. I like just by happenstance had like a few applications into other schools like American that but it was like I was so convinced that I was going to go to West Point that like I had literally not put forth any effort into an alternative. And that was a mistake. And, I think I'm sure some of our most talented like warriors have like really, they have high expectations for themselves going into the college admission season. And like, I just hope that they allow themselves to cast a wide net and allow themselves to experience happiness with what ends up coming forth for that,
Yeah. So this, as a parent, I need to ask you this question because I think about it a lot. I thought about it a lot with my own son as well when he was graduated from here. He graduated, about half a dozen years before you did. But I often think, is it, and I want your individual. I know your parents, and I know how wonderful they are. Your dad serves on our board. Your mom used to serve on our board. She was our NABRA president. She's very dedicated, very involved. But do you think, we as parents have a tendency to put a lot of pressure on you, and it's very subconscious. We end up sort of unwittingly, potentially, or unknowingly create these boxes for you. And I think it's very, very important as parents that we recognize that and say we have to be better at making and expanding these options so that you're not devastated when you get that letter.
Yeah, I think that's a really good point. Like my parents had done like a tremendous amount for me growing up. So there was a level of boxing in outcome, because it's like boxing in what I thought was an appropriate outcome or acceptable outcome for myself. Because, at a certain point, I remember actually like my like freshman year at Army Navy Academy, I saw Captain Thomas Yu and Captain Eric Morale, like they got their acceptances to West Point. And I remember they were given their that like publicly at like one of the parades. And that moment stuck out to me because like, wow, what is this amazing thing that they're announcing it to everybody? These two schools that have no one else got a special announcement. And that really like, I did some research and I decided after a bit of it that like, okay, West Point is the number one most prestigious, most like it's better than Harvard. It's better than
Right.
It is the pinnacle, right? So I decided, okay, without much input, but just talking to a few people who I trusted, okay, this is the pinnacle, right? And I remember I talked to my mom, I was like, I want to go to West Point. She's like, okay, yeah, as if, as if you'll get in. But I was like, I decided, you know what? And as I got older, like I remember around like 10th grade, I began to really understand like just how much my parents had did for me, like growing up, which I won't get into here, but it was a tremendous amount.
Yeah.
And I was like, you know what? The only thing that I can do to honor their level of sacrifice for me is to get into the number one, what I consider the number one university in the country.
Yeah.
And that's why I pigeonholed myself a Brilliant Academy. And that's 100% true. And and it wasn't until like that never actually stopped to ask myself, well, is this the right place for me?
Right.
And because the question was never, was the right place for me? The question is this the best place on paper? Right.
Yeah, beautiful.
Yeah.
Right.
And so that was kind of, now again, like I had an amazing experience at West Point, and there was a lot of positive takeaways that I had. I'm a successful commissioned officer now, so I'm not like disavowing the institution.
No, of course not.
But it's more about just like for these boys, right? Like everyone has their reasons for making their decision.
Right.
And so just make sure the reasons are like the right reasons for you, right?
Yeah, we do that now. And we have these conversations. Where do you want to go to school? X, Y, or Z. How come? Well, they've got the best economic school. Okay. Why did you have to be at the best economic school? What's that region like? What's the area like? Who else do you know that's going there?
Are there even enough restaurants? Like, how's your experience going to be?
Right.
I didn't know that there was no restaurants in Highland Falls, like where West Point. I hadn't seen the campus.
Right.
I didn't see the campus one time before I went there.
Right. It was strictly reputation.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. It's compelling to tell that story, to say, look, you do want to think about this in great, great detail. Some of the boys are ready to hear it, right? Some of them, and look, they're young. I mean, it's hard for a ninth grader to hear it. It's much better for a sophomore and junior to hear it, right? Who are moving into those decision making areas.
Absolutely.
Right. So today you mentioned to the boys, and this is a recurring theme, that by way of preparation, leaving this academy put you in a position to understand leadership in a way that really the service academies simply don't offer. And you thought you were better prepared coming out of here, which is, by the way, many people who come out of schools of this nature, and there's not many of us. There's very few schools that do what we do.
Absolutely.
Boys military boarding schools, and we're a very small cadre right now. But you made the case for it and said, what you have here is in many cases superior to what service academies have to offer.
Yeah, I would say that there's like I said during the chapel talk, like Army Navy Academy, I truly believe in my heart that it offers an unparalleled opportunity for like young men to develop their leadership skills. And one reason I went into in the chapel talk is like, yeah, at the academy, it is a very streamlined process. You do something wrong, that is acknowledged. They put in paperwork. You serve your punishment. There's no humanness to that. You like at West Point, you'll like march on the back and forth, do your tours right in uniform on the weekend, and it's like, where's the leadership in that, right? As a commissioned officer, you're going to you were backed by the power of the UCMJ, right? Uniform Code of Military Justice. You give an order. There is a legal authority you have for someone to follow that. What's so special about the Army Navy Academy, which I try to really convey to the boys, is that like you literally have to figure out, how can I speak to these people? How can I inspire them? Tonality, word choice, please and thank you. Like, what kind of respect can you galvanize and garner from the people who you're working with? How can you get them to like believe in your shared vision? You know, I was talking to my brother Tate on the drive up here, and he was saying that when he was like first started, he was conducting PT with like one of the troublemaker, the kids who was having some trouble in Alpha Company at the time. And he was telling me that, yeah, like by the time he was done with that like PT session, the kid literally went up and was like, I just want to thank you, man. I want to thank you for taking your time and my time and investing in me. And I know you don't want to be doing these push-ups with me, but like you are, and I can see the bigger picture. And he had like fully internalized the bigger picture, which is that like, it's all for self-development. It's all for becoming a better human being. It's all for like growing your character, right? And to be able to convey at a young age, 16, 17 years old, to be able to like inspire another person at this young age to that degree and develop those interpersonal skills to be able to do that, I think that's pretty amazing. And I think that's absolutely where like Army Navy Academy like is just unparalleled in what it offers. So,
and I think it's great that you brought it up, because if we're doing our job properly, that's exactly where we're focused. It's about motivating the human condition.
Yeah, right.
And that's not, look, there are certain times, there are certain cultures where it's much easier. When I was much younger, when you were told what to do, you did it.
Yeah.
This was at a time where
why was a question,
where the conditions set by culture were an adult says something to you, someone of authority says something to you, and you snap to it. And that was a common thing. But that was 50 some odd years ago.
Culture is different. And I think that's what you're hinting at.
Yeah, that's exactly where we're going.
Yeah.
Right. And I think you did a very nice job of articulating that, of saying, look, that you're not just going to rely on the fact that this person has to do that.
You're vice president, you're associate, you're junior analyst. Like, it doesn't matter if it's the military or if it's the business. Like, and I think it's, as I said to the boys, you need to be able to inspire and work with your fellow human being. And that is exactly where, like, I think we shine here.
Yeah. Yeah, when we talk about the core leading the core, you're doing a great job there of explaining what that means. What are the particulars? And that is it. It's about, and those have to be life skills, right? That's why, we talk a lot here. We talk, schools call themselves college preparatory institutions. I always got a kick out of that. And I always thought, gee, that's pretty mundane. You're just going to teach someone to go to college? Really?
Yeah.
What we want to do is change. We want to give them life skills, change their trajectory, and be able to say, look, we're going to prepare you for life. And you just did a beautiful job of articulate. What does that mean? It means getting in the muck with somebody and saying, I'm going to understand how to speak your language. I always used to say, if you're in Portugal, you should probably think about speaking Portuguese, because they will understand you. Right.
I think looking at languages is a great parallel. So, like I speak Chinese, right? And it's like when I was just at the airport at Oklahoma.
Yeah.
And I bet, I guarantee.
It's a hotbed for Chinese.
Yeah, exactly right. You would not believe how surprised this lady was when she came up to me asking for like directions. And I could tell based on like her accent speaking English that she was of like Chinese descent. And I was like, 你会说中文? And she was like, 哦，我会说. And so like we started entering like a dialogue, and like the way in which she lit up, because you're able to speak her language, speaking to her heart, right? You speak someone's language, you speak to their heart. It's this. I really think there's a corollary here,
exactly,
between like
brilliant
when you're understanding someone's how you need to speak, how do you need to lead someone, are they going to best respond to your leadership and your guidance? And like I said to the boys, like I sat when I was a training NCO my junior year here. I sat with my first sergeant, like Dojin Kim, on the floor of his bedroom, like in Hoover A. And we like for hours at night would like discuss these like very small nuances on how to speak to people, how to like, what can I best say at this tact time to inspire this? How can we like leverage this mechanism at Army AV, like this? How can we best leverage TAC Officer Clark's like expertise? He's a very friendly leader. How can we integrate our style with his? All these conversations, and like I think that's so applicable, because you're like anywhere you go, you're gonna have these dynamics, right? And can you really speak the language of the people, the metaphorical language of the people you're with, right?
Yeah,
absolutely.
I think that's brilliant, and I think that's that big life lesson piece. I wish I could I can make sure that the boys are doing exactly what you did when you were in 11th grade, right?
Yeah, it was amazing. I look back on that as highlight.
Yeah, yeah, it's fantastic. But it's it's so important. And if you just have exposure to that at an age like when you come here at 12 and you see how 18-year-olds or 17-year-olds and 16-year-olds are dealing with you, and then you move up through it as you get to your 15, 16, 17 years old, that level of exposure being here 4 or 5 years, 6 years, however long you get to be here, it can change everything for you in your life. And you can leave here. I used to say to, and I still say to some of the people that I know from my professional career, I said, look, you could take my top 4 and flip them the keys to your business. And the only thing you need to tell them is where the bathrooms are.
Yeah.
They can do the rest.
Yeah.
Right? They're that gifted. They've been trained along those lines. And these are, I'm going to hand you 18-year-olds. And they're going to make mistakes. They're going to ask a lot of questions, but
Who's not?
But that's the point.
Yeah.
So is a 45-year-old, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, you're exactly right. And I think but they actually have the skill set to understand. Hey, I understand the human condition, and I have to ask these questions. And I think you did a very nice job of really articulating that and have the boys really say, "Hey, I got to really think about that."
Yeah.
You know how difficult this is. I mean, you were here, and there might have been some of the chapel discussions when you were here. But when you're sitting in there, Jake, and you're 15, 16 years old, this is ruminating, but it's not. It's not, it's not going to stick immediately. There's a few of those boys who immediately get it, right? But over time, they really understand. They'll pick it up 3 months from now, 3 years from now, and really get where you're going with this.
Yeah, I mean, even if like you can just make a difference in 1 or 2, right? And it's like, I was like, I thought to myself before I came in today, I was like, if they're all forced to be there, right?
Yeah.
So I'm going to make sure that they feel like that time was well spent, because I can't tell you what was a bigger pet peeve than when I was at the academy than being forced to be somewhere and feeling like not only is my time being wasted because I'm forced to be here, but the person who's keeping me here didn't even like spend their time like properly to like make it worthwhile, right? So frustrating. So, I really hope I could just, at least if I could even speak to 1 or 2 of them and they like end up making a bit different decision that is more fulfilling for them. That would be my hope. So,
well, I can tell you, Major General Bartell, you were here during his service to our academy, and he used to say, and we use it every day here if we can, is that, our cadets are our credentials.
Yeah.
And on behalf of the academy, what you did for us today and what you do for us every day as an example of what we produce, you are our credential.
Thank you.
And I know from those boys today what you meant to them and what you'll continue to mean to them. And speaking personally on behalf of all of us that work here, you need to know how motivational you are for us.
Thank you.
How you make it so much easier for us to say, yeah, we just need to get it done one boy at a time.
No, I totally agree with that, and I appreciate you saying that, because it's like this feels like home to me, or it feels like family.
That's the idea.
Yeah,
you'll always be family. Thank you for doing this, sir.
It's so great to have you. Thank you. Thank you. Thanks.
We're out.
Yeah.